Hello everybody, and welcome back to the final episode of 2020 The Class in Quarantine. I'm your host, Ashley Lawless, and today I have Marc Velez with me today. How are you doing, Marc?
Um, Good. Just, you know, quarantine.
You just chilling. So for this final episode today, Marc's going to be going into a little bit how he's been able to kind of explore his major and what he's going to go into his career while in this quarantine and in this pandemic. So, Marc, would you like to explain your major a little bit and how you got into film, all that stuff?
Yeah. This fall I'll be going to Emerson in Boston, and I'll be majoring in media arts production, as that's the official thing. And yeah, just like I've wanted to do this as far as I know. I think like it really like hit its stride in like eighth grade. I think. I mean, all my life I've loved movies. Like, let's see, I am, keeping my thoughts down here. Uh, when I was little, my dad, like, he would always like take me out to like Blockbuster, and like we'd always get movies. He had like a ton of movies and stuff, and I would always read too. So like the stories were always just like going through, and just like I always loved it. I remember I think one of my first like big memories was like when my dad took me to Best Buy and we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Oh
which
my
like I
God.
it sounds funny, but I constantly remember because like that was one of the first movies I saw where like it just had a look. Like it totally had just this style that was so iconic and you could just remember it. So that was like one of those things that just really got me into it. And
Yeah,
so on it. Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, I remember this is kind of funny. I have a little story like that too. The first movie I saw in theaters was Curious George, and for some reason, I don't know
Yeah.
why, I cried at the end. So I just, I always used to kind of say that was my beginnings of film, but mine really kind of started in eighth grade too. That's where I started honing in on the fact that I really wanted to go to film school and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
I
great.
remember in my eighth grade yearbook, my best friend, he I don't remember if he told me this on the last day of school or he wrote it in my yearbook. I'll have to check, whatever. But he was like, I can't wait to like go to the theater someday and see one of your movies. And like honestly, even though like I have my own like personal love for it and like I I was I have a huge passion for it. Like that's part of it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. Just being able to like give back to the audience. I know for my yearbook, for the high school yearbook, our English teacher, Mr. Bastine, actually wrote in my yearbook, "I'll see you on the red carpet." And I thought that was so funny. Just because it's like,
He didn't
you
write that to me.
know, yeah. I think it's because I probably did my junior research project on John Hughes. So that's probably why.
Right.
Yeah. I just think it's funny and I love, the support and being able to like have people, see either one of our works in theater someday. That would be so cool. But yeah.
Someone in theirs, someone did it on Steven Spielberg, and I didn't know this, but apparently for like a few years when he was a teenager or in middle school or something, he actually lived in San Jose, where I'm from, and
Oh wow.
I didn't even know that until that presentation. And I was like,
Like it's just the odds are
yeah.
in my favor right now. All right. So let's get into it a little bit.
Mhm.
So for starters, what have you been mainly been able to do in order to keep yourself kind of intertwined within film?
Well, I mean, like, it's mostly just like the whole like student aspect. I mean, I've been I've been watching a ton of movies, but I've been trying to like actually study stuff and look at different things, as well as I've been looking at, just going through video video on YouTube, just looking at different like analysis videos,
Mhm.
just because like I'm trying to like change up, or for the time being, just look at what makes all this stuff happen, the
Mhm.
art of it.
Exactly, yeah. I've been doing that a little bit too, or I have done that before. I don't know if you watch the film theorists on YouTube, but I always like getting into that, and they're a little bit more like out of this,
That's a little more conspiracy.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
But I love looking at like behind the scenes stuff too. That's like
yeah,
very great, and it shows like how efficient production runs, which is like super good insight to have, especially with going into film as freshmen in college and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of with that, like more on like the entertainment side, where like I've been watching some videos of like YouTubers that like they react to movies, like they watch the movie and like you're seeing their reaction because like even though like a lot of it is funny, it's still very interesting to watch somebody like watch it and like how they process it,
Mhm.
like the audience part of the film, like it's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly, and it gives good insight to, like, a director's standpoint for the future,
Hmm.
just to see how different audiences and different people could react to different circumstances. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright. So, what genre of movies, I know you've been saying that you've watched a lot, what genre kind of have you been into the most and why?
Uh, Man, actually, as I was like trying to prepare for this, I kept on looking at that question. And I was like, I legitimately do not have an answer for like what I've watched most because I mean, I just know that I haven't watched any romantic comedies. Like
Mm,
that's pretty much. I've never even like been into horror. I've seen like two tops, and then I just watched Get Out last week.
mhm.
So like I don't know. I've just been trying to take in a lot. I mean, uh, I've been going like through these little like stints where I watched Troy, The Last Samurai, and Gladiator. Where
Mhm.
like in for that week, it was like I was trying to look at how these filmmakers make like a period piece or like an epic, and
Mhm.
like because they all have like these um unique like styles in how you would make that kind of movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's and then also like I had this uh section where I watched a few just science fiction movies like Moon. I forget who directed that, but that one was also really interesting. And then yeah, I kept on going through like since like I would watch like some animated movies, and then I would watch a whole bunch of I think I watched 4 Star Wars movies, 3 through 6, and yeah, The Social Network. That one was particular. I watched that one for the writing more so
Oh, mhm.
because and I was just I think at that particular time I was like uh I watched it because I wasn't focused like I was kind of having like a headache. So what sounds funny, but like I watched it and I figured like I'd never seen it before. I'm gonna watch it and like what I expected was like I watched something new. I'm gonna have to like focus in on it, and that's pretty much exactly what I got out of it. Where like all the writing is like super fast paced,
Mhm.
and it's just like it just grabs you in, like just it's all awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like you've just gone through like certain phases of different movies. I know during that time when you were watching Gladiator and stuff, you had sent me a clip of, I forget what movie it was, but just showing it was from the 50s or
Troy.
was it
I think it was
Troy?
Troy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just seeing how like that whole period piece worked and how intricate each costume was, even for the extras. It was like brilliant just to like look at it from a different point of
Yeah.
view. And same
Yeah.
with like even space movies. I don't know like if that's like a specific subgenre, but you like stuff like Moon and like Interstellar even,
Hmm.
like they're their own kind of like niche movie in themselves, and I love that too.
Yeah. Space movies
Yeah.
just have like, because I don't know. I guess science fiction in general is like kind of up to the creative discretion of the storyteller,
Yeah.
especially because like it's literally like it's far out there.
Yeah.
But like so like it makes it really interesting to see how different creative minds like interpret it. And they have their own idea of what a space station in 2035 will look like.
Exactly. Or like unknown planets even, like how
Hmm.
those they're like Earth like. I love it. I just love that whole creative
Yeah.
piece. And same with like again, going back to the period stuff, that too. Oh, I was gonna ask, are there any genres that like you want to get a little bit more into during this time or anything?
Um, I really couldn't tell you. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I've always been like squeamish slash kind of uninterested in like horror, but like when I was watching like Get Out, just the way that Jordan Peele filmed it, like I remember afterwards I was talking with my mom because like when she was younger, she used to love horror movies. So like even though she doesn't watch them now, like she understands what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
And it was like one thing that Peele did was that he would get these kind of tracking shots, and I the way that I saw what he was doing was that they would be close up, but they would be moving, and so it's kind of like he's showing you more to the shot, but at the same time he's telling you that there's more that you're not seeing. So
Exactly, yeah.
like within the shot, it's kind of like the theme of the movie, and I just like
Exactly. I love that movie is so brilliant, especially just because the first time I watched that movie, the whole plot twist hit me, and I just sat there in my seat like, "What is going on?" And it's just like, so it takes the curve so nicely because when you watch it over again, you can see it happening. Like you can see the little things that you didn't see the first time. And I
yeah
love how you mentioned the tracking shot, just because it's like brilliant how he can tell that story even without dialogue or
yeah
simply in action. It's more a camera movement. So like I definitely
mhm,
love that. It's one of my favorite like thriller movies. I don't know, or like psychological horror kind of thing. I don't know. It's not gory, so it's not like you're trying to
yeah
jump scare, but it just scares you in a different way that's like I guess intimidating almost.
yeah. I mean the whole thing is more so. I mean it is more suspense. Like it's the fact that you don't know what's coming, but not in like a jump scare kind of way.
Exactly, yeah.
And like that when like people say like twist, I usually don't interpret it like it was in Get Out, like because like in Get Out it's more like you know that something is wrong, and then
Exactly.
it's more of a reveal of what is wrong.
Yeah.
Like uh I think I compared it to like The Prestige. I think I talked to you a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it it's kind they're kind of very similar in the fact that like they are building up. I mean, in fact, it's actually a major like plot point in the Prestige that they're leading up to finding out what the trick is.
Mhm.
Like it man, I love it when directors and writers like they know what they're doing the whole time, and
Exactly.
they're in full control of it.
I love like the well thought out process, and that's great because it kind of leads us into our my second question is kind of like how have you been able to like see these movies differently, like from that director's point of view or the writers, even while watching as like an audience viewer.
Well, I mean, like I've always had like I wouldn't say an eye, but it's like in interest in cinematography, just because like I love how just that. Uh, let's see, how would I word this? Well, obviously it's like framing the story, like literally, but just the fact that there are different styles of it that lend to a type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like seeing how certain directors mess with that is just really interesting, and it's, me watching it, I thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm paying more attention to it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think one movie that comes to mind in particular that's more recent is The Joker, just because
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
yeah, just
Yeah.
because through the storytelling they kind of build his character up or through that camera movement, and it's not something that you would particularly think to pay attention to at first, but once you kind of see like the different angles they use throughout the story and how that
Mhm.
changes and how that may change the perception of the viewers, or the perception of the Joker to the viewer. I like love that stuff. And I like a couple years ago, or say like eighth grade, I didn't pay attention to that as much because I'd watch movies
Yeah.
for movies. But now, like getting into it, it's just like it makes the whole viewing experience like 10 times better.
Mhm. Yeah, I think what interested me about the Joker, like as far as I only saw it in theaters, so that was a while back. But as I remember it, like one of the things that was so prevalent in there was that a lot of the shots were like really stagnant.
Mhm.
Like they were just still and things happened within that, which is typically something that happened in like, before technology advanced to like back in the 60s and stuff.
Yeah.
But it kind of just creates that uneasy feeling,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know, like
Mhm.
just because nothing's moving, and so like Arthur is just kind of like he's kind of figuring it out in this play. I could talk about stuff like this like forever. Like
Me too,
honestly, like
yeah.
all these movies just
Yeah, and I think going back to that too, I think like the audience or current audiences today are used to more like tracking shots and moving
yeah,
shots. So when something stays still for
it throws us off.
exactly
Yeah,
everyone's what's going on. And I like love using stuff like that just because it's like to throw the audience off
yeah. That
before
was also a movie that used a lot of color. Like not like it was super colorful or anything, but like the colors really like popped out. Like he
Mhm.
definitely had a what's like a motif going on there.
Exactly, yeah. And I
Like
it
oranges, I think. Go on.
yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna say I think it feels like it grows more vibrant when he's in his own state of mind or like when he's in that
Yeah,
state too, which I love just using a different color palette just to storytell. That's like something I'm always into too.
yeah. I feel like just talking about this, somebody might be surprised that I didn't actually love the movie. Like,
Oh really?
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I
know
mean, yeah.
I know like it's a hit or miss for some people, I think, just because it doesn't really fit too well into that like universe, I guess, or it's a different take on it. But
Well,
I
it's more just like for me, it's as a film because I'm a big fan of Martin Scorsese's films, Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy.
mhm,
So, and like I knew going into it that it would take a lot of inspiration from that, but I just feel like on some levels, uh, it just took a little too much.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, although the performance by Joaquin Phoenix is just
Brilliant.
insane.
It's
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. All right. So, I know you've kind of touched base on like some movies you've been watching, but have there been any like specific movies that have kind of showed you something new or like you've explored a little bit more?
Um, let's see. Well, just looking at my list. Uh, I think I watched Malcolm X a few weeks ago, which actually, now is actually more uh, topical than
Exactly,
it
yeah.
usually would be.
Mhm.
But just in that movie, I thought it was really interesting because I think this happens a lot in like biopics, but like it's more so the performance of the main actor and like how he or she reacts to everything going around them that
Mhm.
really makes the film, which, which is also similar to the Joker
Yeah.
in a different way, but still along the same lines. And yeah, like in that one, just watching Denzel Washington perform in that is very powerful,
Mhm.
especially as the movie goes on, because he develops throughout the film. So
Mhm. Yeah, and especially like acting as one of the most, a very prominent historical
yeah,
figure. It's like that must be so great to see come like have that figure come to life on screen for a little bit.
yeah. After the movie, I watched some clips of Malcolm X, like at speeches or interviews on TV, and just like after watching the movie, watching that, I was like, how didn't he win an Oscar for that? Like it's so spot on, but
Mhm.
also it's not just like doing his impression of Malcolm X.
It's like he kind of embodies him in no sense
Yeah,
instead of
like
which is like
he feels power. Like he gives off this sense of strength.
exactly. And that's like something that brilliant acting is like I love being able like again, I think he personally should have won or at least, won an Oscar for that performance too.
Yeah.
Um but just being able to see that come to life and know that he's more embodying the character than acting as this character,
Yeah.
it's like insane and great to see. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Oh, I was also going to say, I know you mentioned something to me about rewatching some movies. Have you like kind of taken anything from those or like learned anything from those or even seen anything new?
Um, well, I mean, I've kind of had like a healthy blend of like rewatching and watching new movies. And I mean, as far as rewatching some, I mean, last week I watched Clueless, which I've seen before, but as I was watching, I mean, I don't think many people would like take a movie like that seriously,
Mm.
just because it's a '90s movie about a a valley. I don't. Do you know what a valley girl is?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so it's about a valley girl, like just the total stereotype. But as I was watching it again, I was like, this movie is actually like a really good satire. Like
Hmm.
it actually still really works, and it doesn't like it's kind of surprising.
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of feel the same way about Heathers. It's like, it's an 80s movie and it was adapted into a musical, but just the kind of things that they did with the characters, I guess, made
I
the
I
movie
haven't
so
seen it. I'm just taking your word for it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I was actually in the musical, but I had watched the movie beforehand because it has Winona Ryder in it.
yeah,
He plays Veronica, and the stuff that they have her do, and like how that portrays the storytelling. Because what she'll do at some points, or what a character will do to her, will loop around at the end, and it all just comes together so nicely. And it's not a movie that you'd think that would kind of do that because it looks just like a teen movie, whatever.
yeah,
But yeah, definitely movies like that or something, even Mean Girls like that too. I know that's,
yeah. My sister just she watched that for the first time a few months ago, and like I'm a huge fan of Mean Girls, just because like
me too.
it's it kind of is like along the same lines of Clueless, where it's like you really wouldn't expect so much going into it, but there's a lot going on. Like it's hilarious. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
yeah,
They have like a perfect mix of like comedy and relatability. So it's like
yeah,
it blends together so well. And even all the character like the dynamic between all of the actors and actresses, they just their chemistry on screen is so great with one another with their characters that it just makes the movie seem more real than the story just on paper should be.
yeah. And I have after seeing The Parent Trap, that was like one of those movies that like I would always watch with my grandparents,
Mm.
you know. Um that Lindsay Lohan, just seeing her as like the innocent little girl has always like it's always been a favorite of mine.
Yeah, me too. I do love how it's brilliant how at such a young age that she could
Yeah,
kind of act both those parts too. I personally couldn't even do that, and she was probably half my age at that time. So,
yeah. It's crazy.
alright, I know. So, what new movies have you been able to watch? As you know, we've just been talking about rewatches, and you said there was a good blend. And have
Yeah.
you been able to take anything out of those?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, we talked about a few of them, like Troy, The Social Network. Let's see,
I know,
Moon.
I know you'd mentioned Parasite. I know that.
Yeah, Parasite too. That um that one. I mean, it's weird because usually like a movie like that, it's got all the hype. Like ever it won Best Picture. It's like I believe it was the first foreign language film to
I
win
think
Best
so. Yeah.
Picture, which super impressive. I didn't really know what I was gonna get out of it, and then it really just hits like every single mark. Like it has so much suspense. It has really good comedy.
Mhm.
Um, it's got really good relationships between the characters, and you can see the motivations. Oh, I don't think I mentioned that, but like one thing as I've been like looking through all these, I've noticed that in addition to the cinematography, I'm just a really big fan of like looking at character motivations and
Mhm.
conflicts. Like it's finally just occurred to me that it's one of the most interesting parts of of a movie.
Exactly, yeah, and even, like, yeah, motives between, like, one set of characters, especially in that movie because there's pretty much 3 different sets of characters and their
Yeah.
dynamics all going on at the same time, and it all blends together so well at the end, and I usually following a movie with subtitles sometimes is, like, not hard for me personally, but I've heard it's hard for other viewers,
Yeah.
but,
Oh, cinematography too. Like just
yeah,
it's great on like every single level.
exactly, yeah, and, I think the subtitles just make it just adds to it too because it gives, like you
It
can
keeps
see
you
the
focused.
exactly,
Yeah.
and, I know we were kinda talking about it once you had seen it and you were like, "You have to go see it."
Yeah.
We were talking about a little bit how that father figure just steps into his role so beautifully, and
Yeah,
how he, like
definitely.
I don't he kills that role. I've never seen, like, some father figure not dominate the screen, but just take on that role so well.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. It's not like um I mean, I think going back to like Malcolm X, he kind of does both. Denzel Washington in there where like he automatically like just takes full control of your attention.
Mhm.
But also it's like he really does embody the character. I mean, not that you have to like dominate the screen, but
Yeah,
like just that actor who played the father, he's like everything with him just seemed so clear. Not like simple or anything, but just like it was right there for you to understand.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and even, going back to Parasite too, that, like I think I don't wanna spoil anything, but I think the
Yeah.
ending and the color scheme of that too, I know we kind of talked about the color palette of Joker. I think the color palette at the end of Parasite too, or during that, the climax of the movie is, like, so cool to see too because it's such a drastic difference even between colors and characters and how they all come together.
Mhm.
So, yeah, um, what was I gonna say? Oh, so speaking of kind of that directing and cinematography and stuff, with Emerson, have you been able to kind of see any directors or their works, like alumni from Emerson, and like have you been able to go into theirs a little bit?
I mean, from some of the research that I did on like the alumni and stuff, um, as far as it being like a high class like school for film majors, it's still relatively new. So like there's not a ton of their students that are like that have made huge movies. Although uh, there was one graduate who actually went on to write Watchmen,
Mhm.
and Watchmen, it's different because it's a very close adaptation to the novel. So, but still, like that I found was super impressive, and more so, looking at like I'm gonna start watching more of the student short films
Mhm.
just because they're more available, you know.
Yeah, and I know when I was like reading into the school a little bit, I know there's a big comedy portion of that. I
Yeah,
know is have you been able to look into that a little bit? I know I personally haven't, dive I think is Jay Leno an alumni? I think he is.
yeah. Jay Leno is, and Dennis Leary.
Yeah, like, I haven't been able to look into their works, but even, like, knowing those names and being able to, like, see that too, I think that's great, and it's, like, definitely that student short portion too, since they're so easy to access, it's, like it definitely, like, a great thing to look into,
Yeah,
just to see what that school is doing.
I mean, one th- I don't honestly like days just blend together. I think this was at the beginning of quarantine when it wasn't an Emerson student film, but I watched this science fiction. It was probably like a 7 minute long short film, but it was about a teleportation suit or whatever, and just like the way that they build just in those few short minutes, they start out really calm and like interesting
Mhm.
into like total stress. It's just
Oh, wow.
it's a really interesting progression.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I know, there was
I
this
forget what it's called. I'll show it to you later. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say there's something similar, I totally forgot the name of the short film I watched, but it pretty much is the same thing, just, like, being able to build that tension and suspense, all that stuff. So yeah. Oh, so speaking of kind of like creation, I guess it's a little bit away from what you were just talking about, but have there been any directors or anything that you've particularly looked into during this time, or even before quarantine, and how have you kind of looked at their works in a certain way?
Um, I mean, I know that I was saying earlier how like I would watch like genres or and just like kind of like go through that. I haven't fully done that with like directors, I don't think. But like overall, like as in the last few years, I before I rearranged all my movies, I would have them like I would try to organize them by director. Like
Mhm.
I would try to watch a lot of Scorsese films just because like that guy has serious talent and he's deserving of of all the fanfare that comes his way. It's
Mhm.
like it's such a good director.
I know. I love you showed me Taxi Driver and I've loved that, and
Yeah,
I still have yet to see. I think he directed Goodfellas, right?
yeah,
So I have definitely seen breakdowns of that, and I've definitely been meaning to watch that. But even I did take a class with him, and his thought process is like so intricate, and thinks out every single scene, every single shot, and it's so cool to see how his like mind works, even without him commentating on his own work.
yeah. I think it's a well, obviously, yeah, with that and like The Irishman that came out last year. I mean, that's one of those movies that I personally am a fan of longer movies if it is paced well, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, when I watched Troy, I didn't watch the theatrical version. I watched the director's cut just because I do feel like it's not always the case, but a, there are several occasions when like the director's cut is like I want to see what the creator had in mind.
Hmm.
But uh, Zack Snyder, who is probably one of the most visual directors
Hmm.
to have ever been in that field,
Hmm.
you can watch any one of his movies and like a single shot could be like a painting. So, but like I have looked at a lot of his stuff, uh, and it's just it's so interesting that he has, even though he may not be a Spielberg or a Scorsese, but he just puts so much passion into his work. And
Hmm.
like I've looked at a lot of his breakdowns of his films, and he'll just go shot by shot, and he'll tell you like everything that went on here, everything has a context to it.
Oh
Like
wow.
he thinks so I mean, sure, sometimes he's not a perfect director. Like there are a fair amount of complaints about him, but I would never criticize his drive and passion to create what he thinks is the best product that he can do.
Exactly, and I recently have been looking up to a director who isn't as big either. He directed Midsommar and Hereditary. Ari Aster, he's also coming out with a 4-hour film, a horror film, sometime soon. That's what he had just said
Yeah.
that, I think. But even seeing his thought process through his shots too, because not only his stories are incredibly messed up, I don't know how he gets those stories and materializes them, but even how he tells the story through shots, like in Hereditary, one of the main characters is kind of like she's an artist and she creates miniature houses, and the opening shot is a miniature house, but it zooms in and then it's their actual house, the characters, and they have the characters walk in through the miniature house and you can see the action while
Yeah,
it can.
I think that was one of the I remember going to the movies once and I saw the I think that was a poster for it.
Mhm, it's
Yeah.
it's a beautifully shot movie, and same thing with Midsommar, and I always rave about the concept of having a horror movie shot completely in the daytime, because having something so terrifying shot
It's
during the day
innovative.
is
Yeah,
very.
I don't know if I could stomach that, but I when I heard about that, I was like, that that's very bold.
It was.
That's super interesting because
Mhm,
it means that you aren't gonna have to, or not that you aren't going to have to, but you can't rely on typical techniques that everyone has done before you.
Exactly. Like you have to find a different way to scare the audience, which is how
Yeah.
it's so innovative. And even through little things, like I know at one point in the movie, the characters aren't necessarily sober, and you can see the altered state of their mind through the shots as the shots are warped. And even that is just something so small. You have to actually really focus to see the movement, but even something like that portrays, an increased anxiety just through doing that.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly beautiful to me. And yeah, just directors like that in general. Same with Zack Snyder. I love some of his work as
Yeah.
well.
I
But
honestly like film is such an art. Like on I love like when you and I talk about this stuff because I think that we really get it.
mhm.
So it's just like
just
I can't take it.
just a chef's kiss overall. That's all I can say. But what was I gonna say? Oh, so going a little bit more into Emerson, I know, do you plan on like having a concentration in directing, and like what have you been able to do both in this quarantine, and what do you plan to do in the future with Emerson?
I mean, I am looking to focus more on directing. Although like I said before, I do love cinematography. So I may look into that a little bit, but like as it stands right now, I would be going there to look into directing.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And like I said, have you been able to like kind of make any works over quarantine? If not, I know you had done a piece of work in school with
Yeah.
some students overseas, and I like the thought process of everything and seeing it all come together.
Yeah.
But
When I did that one, although I wasn't totally happy with how I concluded, just because like through editing and like when I had to wrap it up, I wasn't a huge fan. But you're always your worst critic, I guess.
mhm,
But over quarantine, I haven't been able to like shoot anything. But I mean, I've done a few storyboards. I've written a little bit, just different concepts, and uh, I think it was when because I am a huge Star Wars fan. There's a poster right there. But and I do have a lot of complaints for like a lot of things that have been a lot of creative decisions that have been made,
mhm.
and as well as just filmmaking decisions. Uh, Whatever. And so like when I was watching the Harry Potter films, it kind of I don't know what it was, but it kind of just like clicked where like I just started writing a little bit and like I it was very like it was personally satisfying just to
Mhm.
be able to like write something that to me makes perfect sense and just, yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely been able to do that too. And like even whenever I have an idea or something that makes sense in my head, I'll always write it down. So my notes on my phone are filled with like little movie ideas and storyboards like that.
Yeah.
So hopefully
I
one day we'll be able to make those,
yeah.
tangible works. That'll be like great to see, especially with like being able to take a work that you don't like and maybe kind of taking some inspiration from that and making it your own.
Hmm.
It's like definitely satisfying to see, especially because, you can create whatever you want. The ending could be, whatever you'd want it to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially it was just like I've talked with a lot of my friends. I've like been on the phone till 3 in the morning and just like discussed like, okay, I did not like that. Like I would have done it this way and I would have done that this way. Just like all this stuff. And then eventually I was just like, I don't need to be super caught up on what they didn't do. Like I should just make what I want to do. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, no, I feel that way sometimes too. I'm just like, I should probably, instead of saying what I should do, I should just do it, you know?
mhm.
But yeah, all right. So, do you have any plans, with throughout the rest of this quarantine? Is it just, how are you gonna educate yourself a little bit more? Do you just plan on doing the same things you're doing? Are you gonna try to get into anything else?
I mean, obviously I'm like I'm gonna continue to do what I'm doing right now, but also I'd just like to I'd like to learn a little more just like on the not the technical side, but just like the industry itself. Not just the filmmaking, but just what's going on. Because I mean, obviously, right now, nothing is normal like as it would be.
Exactly.
I mean, theaters are closing down, and pretty much all film projects got pushed back.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, especially it's interesting to see how the industry will deal with this kind of setback as a whole, because releasing a movie right now, if it's not online, like I know Scooby-Doo is released online, but just releasing a movie in general would just tank because you can't go to theaters like
yeah, you can't do anything with a big budget right now.
exactly.
So there's no there's no use of releasing it on VOD. So you were getting movies like although I mean it's not bad, like getting smaller budget. I mean the King of Staten Island with what's his name? Pete Davidson. That's
Oh,
coming out this Friday or tomorrow.
oh wow.
Yeah. So I mean I'm looking forward to that. Uh partially because I'm not the biggest fan of Pete Davidson. And so I want to see what this is. Because
Yeah.
I hear this is like more real.
Oh, huh.
So
Yeah, it'll be interesting, especially with Pete Davidson. But like you'd said, smaller budget movies that might definitely be able to help. But big movies like Marvel movies and stuff like that, there's no way you could.
they're getting pushed back. I James Bond, actually, that was one thing. I I had only ever seen the Daniel Craig Bond movies. So over this little stretch, I have watched quite a few more, and I love Sean Connery now. So,
Yeah.
but like probably my least favorite thing about this was that I was gonna try to go see the newest James Bond movie in a tux, but then like before prom,
Oh my
they
God.
they
No,
pushed that back, and so it just
just didn't. That would have been so great. I would have loved to see that, but
what are you
just
gonna do?
quarantine, I guess. All right. So, do you have any last, words that you want to say to the audience? Any seniors watching, all that?
Um, I don't know, just that like it it is a bummer that we're in this all right now, but I mean, me personally, like obviously this probably won't apply to everyone, but just because we're all shut down doesn't mean that everything is terrible. Like because of this, I've probably had more opportunities to like get into this mindset and like kind of foster my own ideas more than I probably ever would have if we were still in school.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, I
it
definitely
gives us the opportunities, and just this when one door closes,
another one opens.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I totally get that too. I think if this quarantine hadn't happened, I don't even know if I would have half as many, plans for the future or things under my belt, or even, that prep work mentally, I guess.
yeah,
So just because it would just be go, 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 and then I'd want to just relax. But now, I'm getting myself more prepared, which feels great. And I'm getting more involved in the industry. So it just feels great overall. Yeah. All right. So, that's pretty much it for this episode. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you so much, Mark, for being on the show. You can find an audio clip of this on the Port Media SoundCloud. This live stream will be on the Port Media YouTube, and this will also stream tomorrow on Amesbury CTV on channel 18, as well as their live stream channel. And thank you so much for the support for the show throughout the past month or so. And I hope this gave everybody a bit of an outlook on what each senior is going through and their different just their different plights and stuff. And I hope it just creates a sense of community and unity through everybody. But yeah, I think that's everything I have to say. And I think that's it. Alrighty. Thank you so much, everybody. And I will see you soon. Bye.